Okay, hi and welcome to part 3. I'm just going to have a quick look at this GSpeedES configuration utility now. Basically, you get into the config for the GSpeedES the same way as you would do when you're setting up your broadband router. You know, like when you're setting up your broadband router, you attach it with a network cable to your PC, and then you, or Mac, and then you log into the router by usually typing in 192.168.0.1, and then it opens the config utility for the router, and you set up all your IP settings, encapsulation and port forwarding and anything like that. Well, it's exactly the same type of protocol to address the GSpeed. You're simply logging into it on a local host port, okay, and that's the address you use there. https://localhost : and the port is 7402, and then you're presented with the login, and you simply log in, and the username default is admin and the password is 4 zeros, and that's it, and then you're in, and it's just like setting up your router. Okay, now I'm no RAID expert. Okay, if you're using this with a Mac, most people would buy the GSpeedES because they want greater speed. So it comes out of the box striped RAID 4 speed, and if you're using a Mac, you just plug it in and off you go. For a Windows machine, you'd have to format it with NTFS if you were only reading it from a Windows machine before you could use it. And if you want to use it with Mac and Windows, you'd have to format the array as FAT32, I suppose. But basically, if you're just using it, you know, with a Mac for speed, high disk throughput, read-write, you just plug it in and off you go. But all this config is there, you know, should you need it. And it's got some quite interesting things, all the way up to like what I would say is sort of like, you know, server level things. Like it'll send out email flags and stuff, and there's scheduling for testing the integrity of the array and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. Now, this is your default page when you get into the utility, which basically shows the name of the array and the 4 disks underneath. And if you remember in the second part, I said that I'd discovered that I'd been sent a previously repaired faulty unit. Well, this is where I found the final clue that I had got an old unit, not a new one, because when I first logged in and was presented with this default page, you see where it says name, that's the name of the array, yeah? Well, I've renamed it as GTEC, and that is not the default name that it should come with out the box. When I first got into this config utility, someone had named this array with the title faulty. So that was the final clue I needed to know that it was in fact not a brand new unit. So this is basically your default login page, shows the name of the array, what type of RAID it is, capacity, and you can click this maintenance tab here, and a little pop-up appears, and this changes slightly in terms of what you can do and what is presented to you, whether it's striped as RAID 0 or 5, RAID 5, right? I've got it as RAID 0 out the box, so you're presented with this, but there's one additional parameter that shows if it's set up as RAID 5, and that is that you can change the cache policy, okay, if it's set to RAID 5. But basically here you can delete the array, unplug the array, if you need to unplug it. What else can you do? You can change the capacity. Basically you can expand the capacity of the existing array if you add an additional ES unit to the one you've already got, you know. That you do that here. Yeah, sort of online capacity expansion, that's the OCE, and this ORLM is online RAID level migration, where it's possible to change the RAID level of the existing array, and then you can change the type of RAID there. Okay, the fact that it says here JBOD, just a bunch of disks, is ticked. This is actually set up as RAID 0, so the fact that's ticked doesn't mean that this is set up as JBOD. So there's the devices in the array, and there's the title of the array. You can also rename it here and stuff. If, as I say, it was set up as RAID 5, then you could change the cache policy. You can change the write back and the write through. Okay. So that's what you get with that. Close that. I guess that's the default page, which is accessible in the first menu, Manage Array. Okay. Now the second menu item in the Manage menu is Device. Alright, and that shows you the RAID array in detail. Each disk is listed with its position on the array, gives you the full details of the disk, the make and model, serial number, even the revision of the disk, and then you've got settings to change the write ahead and read the write cache and the read ahead cache, and you can initialize and rescan up at the top there. So this is like a more in-depth look at your G-Speed controller and what's on it. Okay, now the last item in the Manage menu is Spare Pool. Now this I'm a bit confused about because I'm not a RAID expert, as I say, but basically this allows you to, you can configure in protected mode. Well, I'm not in protected mode, so this may look different if I'm in protected mode, but I don't think so. I don't know, to be honest though. But basically you can assign a spare pool, which would be like a hot spare disk, and any drive that you assign there will be added to the array in the event of a drive failure. Okay, but whether or not you can do that with just the one single ES unit, like do a stripe or do a RAID with 3 disks and have one as a spare pool, I don't know. Whether you can only do that with 2 ES units or what, there's nothing about it in the manual at all, and I'm not an expert on these matters. Okay, so that's your Manage menu. You've then got Events. Okay, now the Events menu, basically it's like an event log. Okay, and that shows you everything that's been going on in your events, and you can clear that. Like that. Down the bottom there is where I renamed the array from Faulty Look to GTEC, and then I decided to rename it as GTEC with a hyphen and capitals and what have you. So that's your event log. Then you've got tasks. Whole bunch of tasks. And you've got a task scheduler, okay? And that basically will inspect the integrity of the array, and you can set it to do it as often as you like, and I believe that that will send out an email of the report to an email address. Okay, then you've got settings. That's your scheduler there, and this is all the settings apart from the RAID settings. It's everything like automatic rebuild. You can turn the audible alarm on off. Remember, there's an alarm built in the ES unit that you can set up to. You can turn it off. You can change or restrict the local host port. But also here you can set up SMTP settings and everything to send out email flags should there be anything wrong with the RAID. Up to 4 recipients can receive email. That's really a server thing, isn't it? A web server or data server type facility. And you can test that emailing and add your recipients there. And choose the type of flagging, information warning errors, I presume that is, event level. And you can also change the hard disk temperature threshold at the bottom there. So that's your settings. Basically it's everything to do with the admin of this unit apart from the actual RAID settings itself. Then you've got drive status at the top, which simply shows you drives, their temperature, and the smart status can be clicked for each individual drive, and it shows you the full smart details for each individual disk. And that's your lot. Then you just log out. Okay, so that's your config utility. It's quite in depth, isn't it? Especially the email flagging, because really that's not something your typical video user would use at all. I mean, well, I suppose you might set up an all-night render and go off to the bar and have a late-night drinking session or something, and then go home, and you might want it to send flagged emails to your mobile or something if the RAID array goes down in the night or something. But usually that's a server admin for web servers or something. But it's good that all those facilities are available. So that's the config, and we'll just come back for a last episode where we show you some speed tests, comparing it to the onboard Mac disks and a FireWire 800 external. Okay, see you later.